In the quiet corners of the galaxy, far from the well-known planets and busy space routes, something unusual was happening. A small, peaceful sector, home to various alien species, had always remained undisturbed. The Galactic Council, made up of the most powerful civilizations, kept a careful watch over this part of the galaxy. Everything seemed calm, just as it had been for hundreds of years. But today that calm was about to break. It began as a faint signal. At first, no one took it seriously. It was just a small burst of energy, a random signal in the deep, uncharted space. But when it repeated, again and again, over the course of several hours, the Council took notice. They had no idea who or what was sending this message, but something told them it was important. In the heart of the Galactic Council's command center, the leaders gathered to discuss the strange signal. A holographic map of the galaxy lit up before them, showing every corner of their space. They zoomed in on the area where the signal had originated, and their eyes widened in disbelief. It was coming from the edge of their territory, a place where no ship had ventured in centuries. Could it be a mistake? Asked Zorak, a tall and wise alien from the planet Selros. His green skin shimmered in the dim light of the command room. A malfunction. A fluke. I don't think so, replied Illyra, the Council's head of communication. She adjusted her glasses, scanning the data. The signal is clear, too clear to be random, and it's too powerful for any ordinary signal. As Illyra spoke, the other members of the Council began to murmur nervously. They all felt it, the growing unease. They were a united front, and they had always kept peace within their territories. But this was different. The signal was too urgent, too forceful. Something was coming. Something they weren't ready for. What if it's a warning? Asked Trak, a small but fierce alien from the planet Myria. His deep blue eyes narrowed. What if someone is trying to warn us of an incoming threat? The room fell silent. The idea of a threat approaching their peaceful sector sent a chill through the Council members. They had never faced an enemy like this before. The galaxy had always been a place of harmony, a place where no one expected war. But there was no time to waste. Zorak turned to Illyra. Is there any way we can trace the source of the signal? Find out who's behind it? Illyra nodded. We're working on it. But the signal is unlike anything we've encountered. It's encrypted. Whoever sent it knows how to hide their identity. But we're getting closer. A sense of urgency filled the room. The Council had to act. The peace they had carefully built for centuries was now under threat, and they had no idea what was coming or who it was coming from. Back on Earth, far away from the Council's command center, the crew of a human warship, known as the Vanguard, had been monitoring their mission with great interest. Captain Jane Hawk, the leader of the ship, stood at the front of the bridge, looking at the star maps displayed before her. We've entered the sector, she said, her voice calm but firm. Prepare for arrival. The crew responded in unison, moving quickly to their stations. The Vanguard was one of humanity's most powerful warships, a symbol of their strength and technological advancements. It wasn't here to fight, at least not yet. Its mission was clear: exploration and diplomacy. But Captain Hawk knew that their presence would be felt. A ship like the Vanguard was hard to ignore. The signal from the Galactic Council had reached them just a few hours earlier. It was clear. Humanity's warship was approaching alien space, and the Council had noticed. Captain Hawk turned to her communications officer, Lieutenant Andrea Rios. Any updates from the Council? She asked. We've just received a response, Captain, Andrea replied, her fingers flying over her console. They've detected our ship. They seem concerned. Concerned. Captain Hawk repeated, raising an eyebrow. Why? Andrea looked up, her expression serious. They're not sure what to make of us. A human warship entering their space without warning. It's not something they expected. We're not here to start a war, Captain Hawk said firmly. But they have to understand that we won't turn back. We need to show them we're not an enemy. Captain Hawk's crew was prepared. They had been trained for every possible situation, from peaceful negotiations to the most dangerous of confrontations. But Hawk wasn't concerned about a fight. Not yet. The humans had one goal: to prove to the galaxy that humanity wasn't just about war, but about something more: exploration, cooperation, and understanding. The signal was still echoing in the depths of space, and the Council was watching closely. They had no idea what was coming, but they could feel it. The human warship, the Vanguard, was approaching, and it was clear that nothing would be the same once it entered their territory. In the cold silence of space, the Council's decision would soon be made. Would they welcome humanity, or would they see them as a threat? The stage was set for the next chapter in the galaxy's history, and it all started with a single, mysterious signal from the unknown. The cold void of space stretched endlessly, filled with countless stars and distant planets. The Vanguard, a massive human warship, glided silently toward the heart of the galaxy, its sleek hull reflecting the light from nearby stars. The crew moved with purpose, ready for the next stage of their mission. Captain Jane Hawk stood at the bridge, her hands resting on the railing, as she gazed out at the galaxy before her. The vastness of space was always humbling, even for someone as experienced as her. But today was different. Today they weren't just exploring. They were making history. "Captain, we're approaching the edge of their territory," said Lieutenant Andrea Rios, her voice steady as she studied the star maps in front of her. "Understood," Captain Hawk replied. "Prepare for contact. All systems ready." "Aye, Captain. All systems are online and running smoothly." The tension was palpable. The Council had already sent a message acknowledging the Vanguard's arrival. They weren't sure what to expect from humanity, but they were cautious, and Captain Hawk knew that caution wasn't a good sign. "We've received a transmission from the Galactic Council," Captain Andrea continued. "They've requested a meeting. They're waiting for our ship to enter their space." "Perfect. Let's make this official," Captain Hawk said, her voice firm. She turned to her communications officer. "Send a message back. Tell them we're coming in peace." "Understood, Captain," the officer replied, quickly sending the reply. As the Vanguard neared the designated meeting point, the crew could feel the weight of the moment. This wasn't just another mission. It was a pivotal moment in history. An introduction to the galaxy's most advanced species, humanity. If the meeting went well, it could open doors to alliances, to shared knowledge, and to a future where humans and aliens could coexist peacefully. But there was also the risk of misunderstanding, of hostility. The Council's message had been clear. They were uncertain about humanity's intentions. They had to prove themselves, and that wouldn't be easy. "Captain, incoming ship," Andrea said suddenly, her eyes widening in alarm. "It's from the Galactic Council. They're sending an escort to guide us in." Captain Hawk frowned. It wasn't unusual for alien species to send escorts when meeting new visitors, especially in situations like this. But it still felt off. The Council's caution wasn't a good sign. Still, there was no turning back now. "Put it through," Captain Hawk said. A holographic image flickered to life in front of her. The alien ambassador, Zorak from Selros, appeared on the screen. He was a towering figure, his green skin glistening under the bright light. His piercing eyes met Captain Hawk's. "Captain Hawk," Zorak's deep voice echoed in the room. "We have received your message, and we accept your peaceful intentions. But understand this, our sector is under protection. You will not be allowed to proceed further until we are certain of your purpose." Captain Hawk's expression remained calm, but her mind raced. The Galactic Council was clearly suspicious, and she could sense the underlying tension in Zorak's words. "We come in peace, Zorak," she replied, her voice steady. "We have no intention of invading your territory. We only wish to explore and understand the galaxy, to share knowledge and form alliances. But we need your cooperation." Zorak studied her carefully. "You are human, and humans have not ventured so far into space until now. This is unprecedented. You are, as we speak, on the verge of crossing a boundary. This is not a decision we take lightly. We're not here to challenge anyone, Captain Hawk said firmly. We understand the gravity of the situation, but humanity isn't just a race of warriors. We've always been explorers, scientists, creators. We seek peace. Zorek's expression softened, though his eyes remained cautious. We will see, Captain. But I warn you, if you prove to be a threat, we will act. The communication ended abruptly, leaving the room silent. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. It was clear that the Council's concerns were not easily dismissed. The weight of their distrust hung heavy in the air. They would have to tread carefully, no matter how strong the Vanguard was. We'll follow their instructions, Captain Hawk said, her tone resolute. We'll prove we're not a threat, but we have to be prepared for anything. Her crew nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. They knew what was at stake. The fate of humanity's relationship with the galaxy hung in the balance. As the Vanguard neared the galactic border, Captain Hawk stood at the front of the bridge, watching the stars as they slowly drifted by. The human warship had arrived in a new galaxy, a new world. But what awaited them on the other side? Would they be welcomed as allies, or would they be seen as invaders? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain. Humanity's journey into the unknown had begun, and there was no turning back. The vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly before the human warship, the Vanguard. Its engines hummed quietly as the ship moved through the dark expanse. Despite the peace signals, an air of tension settled on the crew. The crew of the Vanguard knew they were walking a tightrope. Their mission was clear: to establish contact and ensure humanity's peaceful intentions. But the reactions from the Galactic Council had made one thing clear: trust would not come easily. Captain Jane Hawk stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the endless stretch of stars in front of them. The silence was almost oppressive, but she wasn't bothered by it. For her, the stillness was a reminder of how much humanity had accomplished. They had made it this far. They had to prove their worth now. Captain, Lieutenant Andrea Rios spoke from her station. We're about to enter the edge of their territory. The escort ship is in position. Understood, Hawk replied, turning toward the window. Keep your eyes peeled. We don't know what we're walking into. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing on her chest. The Galactic Council had made it clear that they were uncertain about humanity's presence here. But Captain Hawk wasn't the type to back down. If humanity had earned anything, it was the right to be heard. The small fleet of alien ships escorting the Vanguard grew larger on the radar, their sleek forms cutting through the darkness of space like shadows. Their designs were nothing like anything humanity had ever seen. These ships were built for speed and agility, their curves and angles as sharp as the laser weapons they likely carried. Captain, Andrea said again, her voice tinged with caution. The Council's forces are forming a defensive perimeter around us. Captain Hawk's eyes narrowed. The Council was being cautious. Too cautious, perhaps. They hadn't even asked for a formal introduction. It was as if they were preparing for a fight, rather than a peaceful meeting. Her instincts told her that they were being watched closely. Maintain our course, Hawk said, her voice steady. We don't need to provoke anyone, but we won't be intimidated either. She had hoped the Council would see humanity for what it truly was: curious, resourceful, and peaceful. But instead, they were being treated as a potential threat. That didn't sit well with her. Humanity had never been a race to be easily intimidated. If there was one thing her species was known for, it was their unrelenting will to succeed. As the Vanguard moved deeper into the alien sector, the air on the bridge grew heavier. Crew members exchanged worried glances, sensing the unease in the atmosphere. They all knew the stakes. They had been given a chance to prove that humanity was capable of more than just war. But it seemed the Council wasn't ready to trust them just yet. Suddenly, the communication officer's voice cut through the tension. Captain, we're receiving another transmission from the Galactic Council. On screen, Hawk said, her heart rate quickening slightly. They had already been in contact with the Council, but this new message could change everything. The screen flickered to life, and the familiar image of Ambassador Zorek appeared once again. This time, his expression was even more serious. His green skin appeared darker, his sharp eyes scanning Captain Hawk carefully. His posture was stiff, as if he had already made up his mind about something. "Captain Hawk," Zorek's deep voice boomed, "I hope you understand the gravity of the situation. You are now entering a restricted zone. You are under our observation, and any further movement beyond this point will be seen as a direct violation of our laws." Hawk's eyes widened for a moment. A restricted zone. The warning was clear, but it didn't make sense. Why would they call this a restricted zone when humanity hadn't even been given a chance to explain their presence? "We don't mean any harm, Zorak," Hawk said, her voice calm but firm. "We've already sent our peaceful intentions. Our mission is to explore, not to invade. We ask for the opportunity to prove our intentions, not to be judged on what you've heard of us." Zorek's gaze softened slightly, but his tone remained firm. "Your species is untested. We cannot simply accept your word. If you wish to continue beyond this point, you must face the consequences." The screen went dark as the communication ended. Silence hung in the air once more. Captain Hawk could feel her pulse quicken. The Council was not only suspicious, they were ready to fight if they had to. The stakes had just gotten much higher. "Captain," Andrea spoke again, her voice now tinged with uncertainty. "What are we going to do?" Hawk turned toward her crew. Every single one of them was looking at her, waiting for direction. They were all part of something bigger now, part of humanity's future. They could not afford to make a mistake, but neither could they afford to back down. The galaxy had to know who humanity was, who they could become. "We proceed," Captain Hawk said firmly. "We continue forward, as we've always done. We won't allow fear to stop us, but we do it carefully. We'll show them what humanity is capable of." She could see the determination in her crew's eyes. They would follow her to the end, no matter the challenge, no matter the cost. Humanity had come this far, and they would go further. The Vanguard sailed through the darkness, its engines humming steadily as it continued its course. The eerie silence that had descended upon the ship's bridge was broken only by the soft chimes and beeps of the control panels. Captain Hawk stood by the window, gazing into the endless expanse of space, her mind racing with the possibilities that lay ahead. The message from Ambassador Zorek had left her with little doubt. The Galactic Council's mistrust was not just a political stance, it was a warning. And the warning wasn't just for the Vanguard, it was for all of humanity. This encounter, whatever it was going to be, would set the tone for humanity's future in the galaxy. "Captain," Andrea Rios called, breaking the captain's train of thought. "We've entered the restricted zone. The alien ships are closing in on us." Hawk turned to face her officer, her gaze steady. On screen, "Lieutenant." The display flickered to life, and the cold, angular shapes of the alien ships appeared. They were far different from anything humanity had built. Sleek, with long, sharp edges, the ships looked like they belonged to an ancient, highly advanced civilization. They were positioned in a tight formation around the Vanguard, their weapons clearly visible, pointed toward the human ship. "We're surrounded," Rios said, her voice tense. "I'm detecting several weapons systems powering up." Captain Hawk remained calm, her mind racing through the possible scenarios. The Council's message was clear. They were not going to allow humanity to simply pass through. They had to make a decision. "We need to be prepared," Hawk ordered, "but we don't fire first. Let's see what they do." The tension in the air was palpable. The crew could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on them. For years, humanity had faced its struggles, built its ships, fought its wars. But now, this was different. This wasn't about survival or power. This was about showing the galaxy that humanity had learned, that it was ready for something more. As the alien ships moved closer, Hawk could feel her pulse quicken. A soft ping from the communications system broke the silence. "Captain Hawk," a familiar voice called out. It was Zorak again. The image of his stern face appeared on the screen. "We warned you." Zorak's voice boomed through the speakers. "You have crossed into our territory. You will comply with our terms or face the consequences." Hawk took a deep breath. She had hoped for a peaceful resolution, but now it was clear. This was going to be a test of humanity's will and of its ability to make a difference in the galaxy. "I already told you, Zorak," Hawk said, her voice steady, though she could feel the weight of the moment. "We're not here to fight. We are here to explore. But if you're set on war, we'll defend ourselves." Zorak's eyes narrowed. "We are not the ones who have made the first move, Captain. You are. You are on the verge of violating our laws." The screen cut out as Zorak's image vanished. The tension was suffocating now. The alien ships were practically upon them. They were ready for something. Perhaps for humanity to back down, perhaps for a fight. But Captain Hawk wasn't backing down. Not now. "Get ready for evasive maneuvers," Hawk said to her crew. "Prepare the shields, but no weapons unless I order it." The crew moved with precision, their training kicking in as they worked together to prepare for whatever was coming. The first encounter with the galaxy's most powerful race was about to unfold. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. The alien ships were now so close that their designs could be seen in sharp detail. The Vanguard was dwarfed in comparison, but the human ship held its ground. Every officer on the bridge stood at their post, the tension in the air like a live wire. "Captain, incoming transmission," Rios called out, breaking the silence. "Put it through," Hawk replied, her voice tense. On the screen, the image of Ambassador Zorak appeared once again. This time, his tone was different, less stern, but still guarded. "Captain Hawk," Zorak began, "you have pushed us to a breaking point, but we are willing to listen. However, you must prove to us that your species is capable of diplomacy, not just conflict." Hawk's heart raced. It wasn't a declaration of war, but it wasn't a full acceptance either. The aliens were willing to listen, but there was one last hurdle to overcome, proving that humanity could be trusted. "Then allow us to prove it, Zorak," Hawk said. "Give us the chance to show you who we are." Zorak was silent for a moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Very well," he said, his voice softening. "Proceed to the central station. We will meet you there. But know this, any misstep, and we will consider it an act of aggression." Hawk nodded, grateful for the chance but understanding the gravity of the situation. The road ahead was uncertain, but humanity had been given a lifeline. They would have to prove their worth, and the entire crew of the Vanguard was ready to take that step. As the alien ships slowly began to move aside, the Vanguard advanced toward the central station, the moment of truth now on the horizon. The Vanguard approached the central station slowly, the massive alien ships surrounding them like a wall of silent, unyielding force. The moment of truth had arrived. Every officer on the bridge was tense, their eyes fixed on the approaching station, aware that their actions in the next few moments would shape the future of humanity's place in the galaxy. Captain Hawk stood at the front, her posture strong and calm despite the pounding of her heart. She knew the stakes. This was no longer just about proving that humanity could survive. This was about proving they could thrive, build relationships, and earn the trust of races that had watched them from a distance. "Captain, we're approaching the station's docking area," Andrea Rios said, her voice tight with anticipation. "Steady," Hawk replied, her eyes never leaving the view of the massive space station ahead. "Prepare to dock, but no sudden movements. Let's show them we can handle this." The docking bay slowly opened, a massive cylindrical area where the Vanguard was to land. It was unlike anything humanity had ever seen, a design far more advanced than their own docking stations. The space around the station was pristine, almost too perfect, as if designed to impress or intimidate. Hawk took a deep breath. Her mind was focused, but the quiet uncertainty gnawed at her. She had never faced a situation like this before. Earth's history was full of conflict, war, and survival. But this was different. She wasn't preparing for a battle. She was preparing for a meeting. A meeting with beings who held the fate of humanity in their hands. The Vanguard slid gently into place within the docking bay, the magnetic clamps locking the ship securely in place. The alien ships remained in position outside, their weapons still visible, but no longer pointed directly at the Vanguard. It was a small sign, but it was enough to show that for the moment, diplomacy had won. "Captain, the alien delegation is ready to meet with you," Rios said, her eyes scanning the screen where an alien transport ship hovered near the station's entrance. "Let's go," Hawk said, her voice steady. She turned to the rest of the bridge crew. "Stay alert. I want full security on the station. No surprises." The crew nodded, moving swiftly to prepare for the meeting. Captain Hawk made her way to the shuttle bay, where she would board a transport ship to meet with the alien delegation. The air was thick with tension as she stepped into the shuttle, her mind replaying everything she had learned about these beings, their history, their power, their expectations. As the shuttle left the Vanguard and made its way toward the central station, Hawk could see the alien ships positioned outside the docking bay, their imposing shapes a constant reminder of the power they wielded. Yet she felt no fear. Instead, a sense of purpose settled over her. This was humanity's chance to show what they were truly capable of. The shuttle doors opened, and Captain Hawk stepped out into the heart of the alien station. The walls were smooth and metallic, glowing with an otherworldly light. The atmosphere was cool but not uncomfortable, and the air smelled of something unfamiliar, yet strangely calming. At the center of the station stood a group of alien beings, tall, elegant creatures with smooth skin that shimmered faintly. Their eyes were large, with no visible pupils, just a soft, glowing light that gave the impression they were always watching. They stood motionless, waiting for her. "Captain Hawk," one of them said, its voice deep and resonant. "We have been expecting you." Hawk stepped forward, extending a hand, though she knew that this gesture may not be understood by the aliens. Still, she made the attempt, her expression firm but respectful. "We come in peace," Hawk said clearly. "We wish to explore, to learn, and to coexist with the rest of the galaxy. We are not here to conquer or destroy. We are here to be a part of something bigger." The alien before her studied her intently, and for a moment, the silence stretched on, almost unbearable. Then it spoke again. "Your message is clear," it said, "but the actions of your species have not always matched your words. You come with a vessel of war, a ship designed for battle. What does that say about your true intentions?" Hawk took a deep breath, understanding the gravity of the question. She had prepared for this moment, but no amount of preparation could have fully prepared her for this conversation. "The ship you see is not a symbol of aggression, but of survival," Hawk said, her voice steady. "It is our defense, our guarantee that we are capable of protecting ourselves. But we do not wish to fight. We want to show that humanity can be trusted to make peace, not war. We are more than our weapons." The alien's gaze never wavered, its glowing eyes assessing her carefully. It took a step closer, and for a moment, the two species were locked in a silent standoff. "We shall see," the alien said finally. "You have one chance, Captain Hawk. One chance to prove that you are different. But remember this. If you fail, you will be seen as no different from the countless other species that have come before you, and you will be dealt with accordingly." Hawk nodded, her resolve hardening. This was a test, and it was one humanity couldn't afford to fail. She would prove that Earth's future had a place among the stars. "Then we will prove ourselves," she said firmly. "We will show you that humanity is ready." The alien nodded once, a gesture of acknowledgement. "We shall begin." The silence in the alien station was heavy. Captain Hawk stood in front of the alien delegation, feeling the weight of their gaze on her. Their eyes glowed softly, piercing through her, judging her every word. She had to prove herself, and humanity's future in the galaxy depended on it. "We will begin," the alien leader said, its voice low and calm. "But before we proceed, there is something you must understand about us, Captain Hawk. Trust is not given easily, especially to a species as young as yours." Hawk nodded, her face serious but calm. "I understand. But we are not here to take advantage of trust. We are here to show that we deserve it." The alien leader studied her for a moment before turning to one of the other figures in the group. It spoke in a language that Hawk didn't understand, its words echoing in the quiet of the room. The others nodded, their movements synchronized, as if they had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. Finally, the alien leader turned back to Hawk, its expression unreadable. "We have decided to test you," it said. "This will not be easy, and it will not be done with words. We will challenge your species in a way that will reveal whether you are truly worthy of our trust." Hawk's heart raced. This was the moment. The aliens were offering humanity a test, but the stakes were high. If they failed, it could mean the end of any hope of peaceful relations with the galaxy's more powerful species. "What is this test?" Hawk asked, her voice steady. The alien leader took a step forward, its long arms folding behind its back. "It will be a trial of your ingenuity, your courage, and your ability to survive. You will face a challenge that will test your will to endure and adapt. We have created a scenario in which you must use all of humanity's resourcefulness to succeed. Fail, and your fate will be sealed." Hawk's mind raced. What could this challenge be? But she didn't have the luxury of hesitation. She had to show them that humanity was capable of more than just survival. "We accept," she said, her voice resolute. "We will face whatever challenge you have for us." The alien leader's eyes narrowed slightly. "Very well. Prepare yourself, Captain Hawk. The test begins now." The floor beneath Hawk's feet seemed to shift, and she felt a sudden, disorienting sensation of weightlessness. She blinked and found herself standing in a completely different environment. Gone was the calm, cold room of the station. Now she stood in the middle of a vast, open expanse, surrounded by strange terrain. There were no stars, no ships, just an alien world that seemed both familiar and completely foreign at the same time. Hawk looked around, her pulse quickening. She wasn't alone. A group of her crew had been transported with her, each of them looking just as confused as she was. The scene was a puzzle, a test designed to make them think, to adapt, to survive. She didn't know what was coming, but she knew they had to succeed. "We're not just here to observe," said Lieutenant Rios, her voice cutting through the confusion. "We're here to survive this test." Hawk nodded. "Stay sharp. We don't know what this place is, but we will figure it out, together." A voice echoed through the air, clear and authoritative. "This is your first trial. You must find a way to survive in this environment. There are dangers here. Use your knowledge, your tools, and your teamwork to stay alive." The clock is ticking. The voice faded, and the crew looked at each other. There was no time to waste. They needed to act fast, and they needed to work together. Hawk took a deep breath, her mind already formulating a plan. "Let's start by mapping our surroundings. We need to understand what we're dealing with." Rios nodded and quickly began to scan the area with the ship's portable equipment. The rest of the crew spread out, cautiously observing the landscape. It was a barren world, with strange rock formations and unfamiliar plants growing in the distance. The air felt thick, and the atmosphere had a faint, almost unsettling hum to it. "What do you think this is, Captain?" asked Lieutenant Brooks, a young officer who had joined the crew recently. "I don't know," Hawk replied. "But that's not important right now. What matters is that we work together. We need to find shelter, gather resources, and prepare for whatever comes next." As they moved further into the unknown landscape, they encountered obstacles, treacherous terrain, strange creatures, and bizarre weather patterns. The crew had to think on their feet, using every bit of knowledge they had to survive. At one point, they discovered an alien plant with strange properties. They quickly realized it could be used to create a makeshift shelter. Hours passed, and the crew's unity was tested as the dangers around them grew. There were moments of fear, but also moments of triumph, as they overcame obstacles together. The environment was harsh, but humanity's strength lay not in their ability to overpower, but in their ability to adapt. As the sun, or what passed for the sun, began to set, Hawk gathered her crew around a small fire they had managed to start with their limited resources. The wind howled in the distance, but they had created something that could keep them alive through the night. "We've made it this far," Hawk said, her voice firm. "We've survived. We're not going to stop now. We've faced challenges before, and we will face them again. But we'll do it together." Her crew nodded in agreement, their faces grim but determined. They knew the test wasn't over, but they had passed this first part, and that was enough to give them hope. The night was cold, and the alien sky above Hawk and her crew was filled with strange stars, unfamiliar constellations, and a distant, pulsing moon. The world they stood on was harsh, yet it had become their battleground, their proving ground. Captain Hawk stared into the sky, deep in thought. The trial had taken its toll, but they had made it this far. The alien test was not over, and they knew the final challenge would be the hardest of all. As they sat around the fire, exhausted but resolute, the voice they had heard earlier echoed through the air once more. "You have survived, and you have shown that you can adapt. But now you will face the true challenge. You will face a trial that no one, not even your greatest warriors, have ever been able to overcome." Hawk stood up, her eyes narrowing. "We're ready. We've come this far, and we'll see this through." The voice was quiet for a moment, then it spoke again. "You will face an enemy unlike any you have encountered before. It will test not only your strength, but your will to survive. This is the final test, the one that will determine if your species deserves the future you seek." The ground beneath them suddenly trembled. The sky lit up, and the sounds of strange creatures echoed in the distance. They could feel the pulse of energy all around them, like a storm gathering force. "Get ready," Hawk ordered. "Stay close. Don't split up. We move as one." Her crew nodded, their faces grim but determined. They knew what was at stake. In the distance, a dark shape appeared, moving swiftly through the barren landscape. At first, it was a blur, but soon it took form, an enormous creature, unlike anything they had seen before. Its massive body was armored, and its eyes glowed with an eerie light. It was a being of pure aggression, its every movement radiating power. The alien voice spoke again, cold and distant. "This is the trial. You must defeat this creature to prove that your species is worthy of trust. If you fail, your journey ends here." Hawk didn't hesitate. She reached for her weapon, knowing that strength alone wouldn't be enough to defeat the creature. It was intelligent, and it would anticipate their every move. They needed a plan. "We'll use the environment," she said, her voice sharp. "It's too big to fight head-on. We need to outsmart it." The crew moved quickly, positioning themselves behind rock formations and using their limited resources to create traps. They worked in unison, communicating through hand signals and quick gestures. Rios and Brooks set up a series of energy fields that could momentarily blind the creature, while Hawk prepared the final part of the plan, a concentrated blast that could disable its armor. The creature approached, its eyes glowing brighter as it sensed the human's presence. It charged toward them, its movements like a storm, powerful and relentless. The crew braced themselves. "Now," Hawk shouted. The energy fields flared, and the creature howled as it stumbled back, momentarily blinded by the flash. It roared in frustration, its body thrashing as it tried to find its prey. In that moment, Hawk took her shot. The concentrated energy beam hit the creature's side, sending a shockwave through the air. The creature screeched in pain, but it didn't fall. The battle raged on, The creature charged again, but Hawk's crew was ready. They dodged and weaved, working together to keep it off balance. Brooks used a device to weaken its armor, while Rios coordinated their movements, guiding them to avoid the creature's deadly strikes. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the creature staggered, its energy reserves depleted. With a final, coordinated attack, they struck. The creature let out one last roar before collapsing to the ground, defeated. Hawk stood over the fallen creature, breathing heavily but triumphant. She looked around at her crew, their faces a mix of exhaustion and pride. "We did it," Hawk said, her voice filled with relief. "We survived." The voice of the alien leader echoed once more, but this time it held a note of respect. "You have proven your worth, Captain Hawk, and the crew of the human warship. You have shown that your species has the strength to survive, the ingenuity to adapt, and the will to fight for what it believes in. You have earned our trust." The ground beneath them rumbled again, but this time it was a sign of something different, an opening, a new path forward. The alien station's energy began to change, its atmosphere shifting from cold and intimidating to warm and welcoming. Hawk and her crew stood tall, their bodies battered but their spirits unbroken. They had faced the impossible and triumphed. Humanity had passed the test, proving to the galaxy that they were not just survivors, but warriors, creators, and partners worthy of trust. The alien leader's voice spoke one final time, carrying a message that would change everything. Humanity has earned its place among the stars. As the crew made their way back to the warship, the vast expanse of space stretched before them, full of possibility. They had proven themselves. The journey ahead was uncertain, but now they were not alone. The galaxy had taken notice of humanity, and the future was theirs to shape.